Yeah, today I'd like to go over the PE Racing pedals, how they go in, and some of the kind of the neat special features about them. PE Racing is out of Australia, like a lot of the stuff on our car, and they really went outside the box, but managed to keep it super simple and made my job really easy, which was a huge part. Typically mounting pedal boxes in a car can involve sometimes 10 or 15 hours worth of fabrication and seats in and out and putting the driver in, taking the driver out, just to get that right angle, because a lot of this stuff isn't adjustable on your typical pedal box from an upper swing or a floor swing. Now with this floor swing setup, that PE Racing sells, it makes all those trials and tribulations involved with putting a pedal box in a car go away. What I really like is that all of this stuff is adjustable. The sides of the pedals, I can adjust the angle super easy with just the turn of a couple screws, and change my entire foot approach to the pedals to my liking. The nice thing is that to kind of mold to all the different kinds of cars that these could be used in, these footings are all adjustable and will just bolt to the car as is. Now in the S chassis, the floor is a bit uneven where these pedals would go, and with this I set it once, marked it, put a clamp on it, sat in the car, and it was good. Marked the holes, drilled the holes, put it in, and it was done. Like, it was a half an hour job versus 10 or 15 hours. Time is money, especially if you're paying somebody else to do the work. $100 an hour, that's a lot of money, right? So that little bit of extra expense in a really good quality product like this, I think is really, really worth it. What I really like about it is that it looks really cool, and looking cool is a really big thing for me. So, as like everything on the car, it's got to look right, and this looks better than any other pedal setup I've ever seen. So I'm really excited to show you how it goes in. You might be wondering what this knob does, and what that is like a brake bias adjuster. Well, typically in your standard road car, you'd have a brake cylinder that does the front and the rear. Now in a pedal box setup, typically it uses a master for the front and a master for the rear. One to operate. So we have this to one side, this to one side. So to adjust the brake bias now, because in your typical car, your master cylinder is at the front and it's doing the work for the front and the back. So you usually have an adjuster in the brake line going to the rear of the car that adjusts the bias to the rear. Now with this, you can't really do that because your front and rear are already separated. So what PE Racing has done has made what's called a balance bar on the brake pedal. So when you push it, I think it is set in about in the middle, so it's pushing both arms at the same time. Together. Now if I adjust this, just doing this in an aggressive amount so you can really see how much of a change it is. But this really allows for finite adjustments, and you can also see what you're doing, which is really nice, versus a line that a brake bias adjuster you'd have pump through the hydraulic line to the rear. You don't know really what's happening. This, you can really see the mechanical change you're adding. So now that we've adjusted the balance bar almost all the way to one side, as you can see when I press the brake, one side moves less than the other, which would change your brake bias, which is a big thing. I really like a slight rear brake bias because I like to drive with the brakes, and some people like a strong front bias, and it's just all up to driver preference. So luckily I can change that on the fly within a couple turns, and I can see how many turns and kind of relate that to what is making the change, which is really, really important. I really like that. So we're going to try to mount this in a really slick spot. I'm thinking in one of the dash vents, I think. So for this PE Racing pedal install, you don't need a welder, you don't need any special tools. something to mark it with, and a steady hand. That's it. I'm not building any special platforms or like messing about. It's just a drill and bolt it in. So on an S chassis where I wanted to mount my pedals, two of the holes that I needed to drill found themselves inside the frame rail, so there wasn't kind of another side to it. So what I used was some nutserts, which is basically a rivet that has threads inside of it. So I drilled my hole, added the nutsert, and just kind of a captured nut that's installed just like a rivet would be. So aside from that, it just went in. Kind of put it in. Figured out where it really felt right. We mounted the seat in the car and messed about with it a little bit. Tried a couple things. Used a clamp to hold it through the steering column hole there. Just fire the hardware through it. After you drill your holes and bolt it up. Get a friend to hold the wrench on the other side and off you go. I just used a paint marker, marked through the easily accessible holes in the lower plates, and in it went. It really wasn't as extravagant as I kind of hoped it would be on camera, but that's kind of the beauty of this product, is that the tons of labor and nonsense you go through, like, just you don't have to deal with it. So it's really, really, really nice. That bias adjuster we spoke about, I'm probably going to mount it inside off to my right, so it'll be a little bit easier to get to. Or I might even mount it beside my seat, as I got lots of space, as my seat will be pretty far over. Maybe off a bracket off the roll cage, who knows. It's nice and long, so my opportunities are definitely endless. What's also really cool is that the pedal stroke I can change. So I can make it so small input moves my throttle a lot, or like I need to do a complete full compression to go wide open throttle. I can adjust that sensitivity just with a couple small adjustments right here on the side of the pedals. I'm not making new throttle plates and messing around with that. It's just a turnbuckle and mounting in a different spot, and it's done. So that's it's going to be fun to mess with, and will definitely help kind of harnessing the hopefully around 1,000 horsepower that should make on high boost with the nitrous. So that'll be really cool.